Now, in the sports media landscape, we're seeing competitors trying to jockey for position, even collaborating with each other in ESPN, Warner Brothers, and Fox Sports. They planned on launching an app this fall, right before NFL season starts up, but just a few weeks before the launch, Fubo Sports got a judge to file an injunction blocking the three mega giants from launching the app. And they had every right to do so, as their business model and their original idea is really on the line. Fubo Sports at $42 a month is offering a middle tier plan to get a particular kind of sports fan who doesn't want to overspend on sports packages. A nice little plan. But with ESPN, Warner Brothers, and Fox Sports launching their Venu app at the same price point, they're going to have a major competitive edge because they're not necessarily bundling all the garbage channels they normally did with cable. For example, ESPN bundling ABC and ESPN Classic or ESPN Sports or ESPN News. Fubo Sports is arguing in order for them to offer the same product, they had to take on additional channels that they did not want. And by the other three mega companies collaborating, they would basically control almost the whole sports market, up to 60%. All this is happening while Fubo Sports is already struggling, as their stock is almost down about 40%, even after climbing up when they won the injunction. So it's definitely the Wild West out here when it comes to live sports streaming, and the overall landscape has not really been proven to be profitable yet. That is an upcoming conundrum that's a situation on its own. But to get further insight on this, we're going to hear from the guys at Sharp Tech on some of the inner dynamics here at play. You guys check it out, and every once in a while, I'll check in.
Fubo cannot stop Disney from launching an ESPN streaming service.
Correct.
That Disney does not have a duty to deal. What is happening here is Disney and Warner Brothers and Fox are basically colluding. And that's not legal, right? Like the broader, we've talked about this before, and this is a bit where, one of the challenges of becoming sort of a finely honed business, the sort of bullet train, to use our sort of long-standing analogy, is you're not just limited in flexibility in terms of your own decisions of what you want to do. You do become legally constrained in what you sort of can or cannot do as well. In this particular case, Disney in particular is sort of the kings of this, is, you want ESPN, the most important channel for a cable bundle? Guess what? You're going to have like these 15 other channels, right? And I wrote about this years ago when I think it was Sling launched the first sort of virtual bundle. And they had a very limited set of channels because they wanted, again, everyone wants to deliver only the good channels, quote unquote.
Everyone wants to only deliver the good channels, but here's the conundrum. There's no sports package right now that has everything that someone would want. No matter what you get, you're going to have to sign up for an additional streaming service to get access to the overall package that you want. And instead of one of these streaming services trying to fix this conundrum, they sort of left the marketplace so fractured that it's actually more of a nuisance to gain access to all the sports you actually want to watch. They've approached this in the manner of, okay, let's just get a skinny bundle where it's like a little bit under 30, but it doesn't have as much. And then we'll get a medium bundle like Fubo Sports, and the attempt that ESPN, Fox Sports, and Discovery is trying to do with the Venu app, where it's a middle tier plan at $42 a month. And then, of course, I believe is YouTube TV and others at the more premium price. So no matter what, the consumer is really forced to get at least two packages to satisfy, I would say, 80% of what they really want.
Unquote. And so they had the big ones, and then they had like Maker TV. What is Maker TV? Well, Maker TV is downstream from a YouTube channel that Disney acquired. And it's like, why would they have that? Oh, because to get ESPN, you have to also get these 15 other channels from Disney. Again, 15 is not the exact number, but you get the sort of idea. And this is why the true cost of ESPN was never the $10 or whatever you paid for ESPN. It was the cost of all these crap channels that no one wanted that actually drove the value. And you think about it, for a long time when everyone had cable, the actual way to increase your profitability in the cable bundle, it was a fight between the distributors, like a Comcast or a Charter or whatever it might be, and the cable companies over, if the customer, like, what portion of that customer payment do we sort of get? And the way that entities like a Disney would increase their share is by bundling, is a bundle within a bundle. And so we get more and more of these sort of bits and pieces. And so when Fubo comes along and we're like, we want to do a virtual cable bundle, but we only want to do sports, Disney's like, yeah, nope, not going to happen. If you want ESPN, you're getting every single. That's right.
All the ESPN Classic you can.
And they all did this, right? The thing with the cable bundle is it actually wasn't like 75 independent companies. It was like 5 companies that were like, right. And so they were. That's how they would sort of maximize.
This is a new market, so these tactics are more transparent in this new pay TV streaming market. And
exactly, that type of bundling worked under the old system of broadcasting cable, but under streaming, it's so obvious what you're paying for. A lot of the customers, they might end up rejecting the product, and they're not under a contract where they're forced to having to subscribe to these type of services. That in a way is almost a brilliant part of streaming versus cable television. The fact that you had to actually click through the channels to really see how much garbage you wasn't really going to watch versus streaming, everything being on one screen and you could actually see what exactly you don't want. It was better hidden under cable, but these companies at some point are going to have to adapt because no one really today is going to pay for MTV2, ESPN2, ESPN Classic, Fox Sports 2, TBS, USA Network. No one's going to pay for those things. Under the new direct-to-consumer model, that's not going to work.
What's happening here is that now, after all these years of telling Fubo, you can only buy ESPN if you're buying 8 channels from us or whatever the number is. We're now going to sell ESPN directly as part of this joint venture that, oh, by the way, is going to be cheaper than the product that you've been offering sports fans for all these years.
Right. So if Disney wanted to let Fubo just sell Disney and then go to Warner Brothers and just have TNT and just do XYZ, they could launch this joint venture, no problem. The issue is they're restricting this ability to sort of pick and choose the channels that you want to themselves. And again, you can do that if it's just your thing. You can't collude with other people to sort of do it. And that's
because collectively they control, I think the holding said 60% of sports rights in the United States. So that's real market power.
Right. And so the issue is the collusion. That's why it's not a duty to deal sort of issue.
And ESPN has an out on that because they're launching their own app in the fall of 2025, right before the NFL season. So this venture between ESPN, Fox Sports, and Warner Brothers with the Injunction is dead on arrival. And most importantly, they're going to lose time to have proof of concept. There was a nice little window before ESPN launched their own app to collect data to see how the app is working. Maybe ESPN have certain features that don't step on the toes of the Venu Sports app. And the same thing for Fox Sports and Warner Brothers on their side. But now they're losing ground on working through the kinks. So then it'll become, is it worth it to go through litigation over this for about a year? It's almost a waste of resources at this point, especially after the fact that they missed launching during the NFL window. The football season is prime time to launch these apps, and that's where they're going to see their spike in subscriptions.
Now, the defendants are playing the duty to deal card. They're saying we don't have to sell to Fubo. And basically the again, this is a preliminary holding. It'd have to go through a case, but I think it's a reasonable injunction in that they're probably going to win because this is exactly what the Clayton Act sort of is about. You can't you don't get to collude to sort of create this sort of entity. And so yeah, if Disney wants to sell ESPN on its own, it can do that. It doesn't have a duty to deal ESPN to another entity. It also can't make restrictive agreements with other companies that sort of favor itself and lock other folks out. So I think it's a pretty clear ruling. It makes sense to me, and it seems like the right case. There is a sort of broad-based sense, which is like all these companies are sort of in trouble, and because the cable bundle is sort of falling. And that gets to my bullet train bit, right? Like, sorry, like when you optimize for this specific use case, just because that use case is falling apart doesn't mean you get to undo the realities of your optimization, right? It kind of, it's like the Google and Android thing, right? Google doesn't get to sell Android and push it as being open access and then retroactively lock it down. You don't get to change the terms. And that's why, you watched that case. I know you said sort of last week, that's why they're going to get hammered on it, because they tried to change the terms. And this is a price of sort of optimizing your business, as it were. Like, okay, fine, you can do that, but then you're locked into it.
The reason they wouldn't want to just sell ESPN as a standalone product, if only to put this particular joint venture on more solid ground in an antitrust context, the reason they wouldn't do that for Fubo is because they don't want to upset their relationships with the actual cable providers. Is that right?
Yeah, I mean, all their terms and like whatever, they still make a lot of money, like from cable. Like, even though it's dwindled to like half the population, that's still a lot of money.
Allow Fubo to be like way cheaper than the cable bundle because they don't want to upset the apple cart.
Yeah, I mean, number one,
at some point they're gonna have to make a sacrifice, and if they want to be profitable and growing under streaming, they're gonna have to loosen up the collar in those cable bundles. But again, as of right now, streaming is not really proven to be profitable outside of Netflix.
There may be contractual restrictions that they can't do that. They can't sell to someone else. But number two, they don't want to because, I think Maker TV has since bit the dust, but the Maker TVs of the world are still driving revenue for Disney. And so this is, this goes back to the Disney Charter standoff from last year, which was really Charter saying, look, your strategy has been very effective. It's been so effective that you're basically taking more than 100% of our TV revenues.
And it's been so effective that during that dispute, when Charter did not have certain channels on because they were negotiating, instead of letting their customers know that they were working things out, they actually pointed them to other services to sign up for. That right there was Charter letting the networks know that your product is not as valuable as you think, and we're going to point our customers to your competitors.
You know what? Whatever, that's fine. We're not paying for your crap channels anymore. It's done. It's over. And that was sort of the big thing at issue here. And oh, by the way, you're going around us with sort of your streaming service sort of down the road. And what was the actual service that Charter was sort of pushing? They're saying, hey, go get Fubo. That's what they were telling us. Like, hey, why not?
Interesting, because I was very skeptical that this joint venture was ever going to work, because I'm not sure that there's really a market for sports fans who are willing to pay $42.99 a month for some sports, 60% of sports, but only need to watch 60% of sports. I thought this was going to be a situation like Microsoft Activision, where the market would have taken care of this problem on its own, and there just would not have been much of a response to this product.
Well, no, but it kind of is all the sports you need, because all the other sports are by and large on the broadcast, right? So if you get an antenna and then this sort of can fill in the pieces, maybe not a huge market.
Now these guys right here are probably not really that big into sports, but not everything is on broadcast. It depends what market you're in. Some of the local teams in the NBA are on broadcast now due to the fallout of Bally Sports, like the Phoenix Suns, and I believe the Dallas Mavericks, and even the Utah Jazz. But most of sports is not on broadcast. But depending on where you are in the country, most people are going to have to get two services to satisfy about 80 to 70% of their needs. Because at the moment right now, that is the cap of what the marketplace can actually offer to their customers.
This was a joint venture that wasn't going to succeed, and then the sports forward streaming service that is having struggles of its own, and it all exemplifies how lost this industry is.
Right. No, exactly. That's kind of the irony of this, right? Like, I think it is a clear antitrust sort of violation. And also, to your point, maybe it doesn't really matter because the whole thing's screwed anyway. This is sort of you see this happen a lot, where the natural response to a shrinking industry is consolidation. Like, that's what sort of makes sense, because you still want to get economies of scale. You still want to, and so it makes sense that as the market gets smaller and smaller, the remaining entities should sort of combine.
Now that philosophy is going to be quite interesting under streaming, because the audience interaction with that whole platform is way different than it was under cable. Let's say a network like TNT, if you're watching that specific channel, the NBA would own that time slot where they're making sure that their product is the only thing being shown. But under streaming, the audience could just hit a back button and they're going to have access to 40 to 50 different movies, documentaries, and seasons of television shows. It's a complete different interaction. So it's going to be interesting to see how that plays out. But the old model of bundling, it's going to be extremely difficult for companies to get off that high.
And that does tend to run into antitrust issues, which is like, but if you zoom out, and I think this is actually a reasonable defense of the joint venture and a reason to be skeptical of antitrust sort of generally. If the market was growing, no one would want to actually be doing this joint venture in the first place. The fact they're trying to do something anti-competitive is actually a function of the market is shrinking, and maybe this actually is a more efficient way to serve customers sort of in the long run, and not letting it happen is actually anti-customer. It does get to the bit where one of the issues with antitrust is it is interference with the market. And in this case, it actually kind of is a consumer-friendly market response that this joint venture is being mooted.
Consumer-friendly for now. I think if they were successful in driving these skinny bundle competitors out of the market, the $42.99 would be hiked up sometime in the next couple of years.
Of course it would. The leagues are going to want more money. These streaming services are in business with the NFL, the NBA. They're not coming to you after 10, 11 years from now and going to ask for the same amount of money. They're going to want double their rights. That's how it always has worked, especially for the NFL. NBC coming out of nowhere and just giving the NBA more money than the NFL. Make no mistake about it. The National Football League has an early opt-out clause, and they are going to exercise that and ask for more money because the ratings that they produce is not even close to the NBA's.
To be very, very expensive.
But there are no skinny bundle competitors.
Well, there wouldn't be if Fubo was driven out of business, our favorite streetwear streamer.
The point of Warner Brothers, ESPN, and Fox Sports collaborating is their version of the skinny bundle. They're trying to take over that market. They want to serve up all kinds of customers. Whether you got a few dollars in your pocket or you're diehard sports fans that want all the packages, or you're just a guy who casually watches it, maybe when you get home from work for 1 or 2 hours, but you don't want to shell out a lot of money. They want access to the whole demographic instead of presenting one product to the market that can satisfy a diehard. To think about it in a way, the diehard fan is really the one that's losing out on all this, unless they're willing to shell out a ton of money for 3 different services. So it is what it is. You guys definitely hit up the mailbag if you have any questions. And until next time, you fellas stay safe. Peace.